So thank you everyone for swapping into the panel discussion. We are going to be talking through Australian itineraries today. I have with me Charmaine from Hallmark Travel and Nikki Metcalf from Flight Centre. So thank you so much for joining to both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited to get talking about Australia. So for those of you who don't know, these agents have a lifetime of experience selling Australia. They know it like the back of their hand. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat box. And we're going to be talking quickly about market trends. As we heard from suppliers in the last session about trends in bookings, I thought it would only make sense to ask agents if they're seeing similar patterns. And then we'll move on to Charmaine and Nikki's recommendations for destinations and experiences and accommodation, spanning all different types of travel, such as self-drive, adventure and luxury, as well as for first-time and repeat visits. So before we move on to the itinerary building section of the discussion, like I said, we heard from the suppliers in today's previous session about market trends. We wanted to ask you if you're seeing similar things. So Charmaine, shall I come to you first? What kinds of trends are you seeing in travel to Australia at the moment?
Well, it's brilliant because Australia is becoming a topic of conversation in the office. I would say people are asking about adding a couple more weeks to their trip. So if they were going to go for 3 weeks, they're adding a couple more weeks to it. They're preferring not to go via another country, I found, because of the complications with the rules and regulations. So the direct flight service has done very well with us. Yeah, that's mostly what I'd say. They've got money to spend. They're desperate to go, and they're just going to do it in a little bit more luxury than they did before.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. Nikki, what about you? Are you seeing similar trends? What kind of stuff are you seeing at Flight Centre?
The majority of the stuff that we've been booking for the most, like the next couple of weeks or next couple of months, has definitely been VFR. And I think Brisbane's probably been our biggest hub. But what we are finding, I think, is a lot of VFR adding on holidays as well with it. So they're looking at packages with their family that they're booking through us, because then they also get package protection, which is something that I don't think they necessarily thought about as much before, but something that's very prevalent now, in the media, and most agents are talking about it a lot. And I think being able for them to go see their family and then use all the amazing facilities that are opened in and around Queensland has been amazing for us as well, and gives them additional.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know I'm seeing an uptick in VFR. I mean, I've got 2 friends currently visiting in Australia. So yeah, we definitely know they're traveling.
Yeah, everyone's back.
Yeah. And Charmaine, what about VFR at Hallmark Travel? Are you seeing any trends in that market?
Yes, definitely. Like you say, they're desperate to see relatives. Lady I spoke to last week was there 3 years ago when she saw her new granddaughter, and now she's going back hell or high water to celebrate her 3rd birthday. So it's very sad, but it's also it's a very happy moment to be part of that reunion, I think, which makes it all very emotional. And I think when you're face to face with customers in the high street, that means an awful lot to you. So yes, definitely seeing that VFR market. We've done more, I think, to places like Melbourne than we have to Brisbane. But
really?
Yeah, but they're coming in.
Offices there. We just send everyone back home for who's been working for
us. So we're flying them into Darwin, and then this one of these particular bookings is they're taking the GAN down to Adelaide and then on to relatives in Melbourne. So
amazing.
It's lovely because you can really let your imagination run with Australia now.
Yeah, absolutely. One of our viewers, Claire, has got a client who has family in Perth and is asking if Perth is open to UK travellers going to visit family. Do either of you know if that is the case?
I didn't hear I'll let you answer.
Sorry. WA was always the tricky beast with regards to opening up. I believe it is, but I don't know if the direct flight's going in there yet. I think they've switched it to Darwin. So everything changes every day. So it's something that I look at every day just in case. So I can tell you something now and it'd be completely different by 5 o'clock.
Where do you look for your information?
So on our website, we use Sherpa. which is a link directly into our website as well, which you can then use to say, are you vaccinated? Are you unvaccinated? What passport you hold and where you're going? And we use that for the whole world. So not just Australia, but then to be able to look at what the requirements are for each state and destination. And then obviously the websites, each individual tourism board website for each state is got the world of knowledge on it.
Cool.
The .gov website's very good as well. And that's always up to date. So we look at that too.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Okay, so moving on to itinerary building, because that is the aim of the game in this session. Charmaine, I'm going to come to you first and ask about first-time visitors to Australia. Lots of people now Australia's open might be thinking, oh, let's make a longer trip of my holiday. Let's go somewhere I've always wanted to go who haven't been before, Australia. What bucket list destinations and experiences would you recommend for a first-time visitor?
Well, first timers nearly always do the old Sydney Rock and Reef triangle. So I would say do that and build in a couple of those unforgettable experiences. So maybe the trip to the Blue Mountains and the bridge climb. Everybody loves to do the bridge climb. If you're going to the middle of Australia, what about having a hire car and driving between Uluru and Alice Springs? That gives you the real feel of the outback and the Aboriginal experience in the vast wilderness of Australia, completely different to Sydney. And then up at the Barrier Reef, perhaps one of those little cruises that go out of Cairns 3 or 4 days, so that you're under the stars, under the Milky Way, swimming in the sea with all the fish around you and the turtles and that. So you've done your Sydney Rock and Reef, but you've just put in a couple of extra special experiences there.
Oh, sounds amazing. Thank you. And Nikki, what about second-time visitors, people that, are dying to get back to Australia after visiting once and wanting to go again, but haven't been able to because of the pandemic? What kind of destinations or experiences would you recommend for them?
I think, like Charmaine said, Sydney Rock and Reef is your go-to number one. So then there's so much more to see of Australia. If you've got clients or customers going into Perth, a really sensible option where you don't have to worry about seasonality and wet or dry seasons, that type of thing, is the southwest corner around Margaret River, down to Pemberton and Albany, being able to see those amazing experiences down there. Yes, it is called Shepherd, sorry. Around the Wales and Margaret River vineyards, and of course getting across to Rottnest Island and seeing a quokka is absolutely amazing. So I think being able to look at individual smaller areas. South Australia and Tasmania are fantastic states, but a single state, multiple experience destination, and something that you don't often hit up on a standard first time itinerary. So those states have a wealth of experience to offer, and is incredible to then really immerse yourself in a different side of Australia.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, agreed. I've always wanted to go and meet the quokkas on Rottnest Island. They're so adorable.
Sweet.
That's so funny.
Okay, so moving on next to self-drive holidays, which are obviously hugely popular with visitors to Australia because it's a massive road trip destination. Charmaine, what route or destinations, experiences would you suggest for kind of the quintessential iconic Australian road trip?
I'd say there's two that come to mind straight away. I think obviously the Great Ocean Road has got to be one of the most wonderful car journeys in the world. And the other one, which I did a few years ago, was to drive from Perth up to Monkey Mere. There was so much there with the pinnacles, the Pink Lake at Geraldton, Nature's Window, Kalbarri National Park, the stromatolites, the Shell Beach, and then the dolphins when you got to Monkey Mere. And the way was only one way, you can't get lost. Lovely little hotels along the way, and these absolutely fantastic unique kind of places in Australia. The Pink Lake was just amazing. So those are my two top drives, I think, that I've done.
Okay, thank you. Amazing. Yeah, I mean, I've seen photos of the Pink Lake. It looks out of this world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. These are all places that, you know, I can picture but never been to. I can only imagine how much better they are in person.
And you almost think they're fake because you're like, how could that possibly be? How could that be in existence?
Yeah. Cool. Aidan's put a question here. What about Lake Ballard?
Yes, that's a pretty unique place. I know who's asked that question. That was an amazing place with the statues that look out to sea. I don't know if anybody is familiar with it. I think that would be almost third or fourth visit to Australia because it is so far away from anything, really. That was amazing, and I learned an awful lot about the guy. I saw the Angel of the North up at the top of the M1, which is another one of his sculptures, and I think he did the fourth plinth at Trafalgar Square. So yeah, there's a lot of culture there as well. It's not just kangaroos and throw a shrimp on the barbie.
Colette's asking about duration for those two routes that you suggested, Charmaine. How long would it take to drive those?
The Great Ocean Road, I would recommend at least 2 nights between Adelaide and Melbourne, at least 2, 3 if you can manage it. And the Perth up to Monkey Mere trip, I think if you did a couple of nights on the way up and a couple of nights on the way back, and then perhaps 2 nights at Monkey Mere, you're talking about 6 nights altogether. It really is worth spending the time. In Australia, the roads are easy. There's lots of places to stop. There's railings if you want to go and look at views. You're not going to fall off a cliff or anything like that. So take your time. Absolutely take your time.
Okay, fantastic. Now, talking about adventure, obviously Australia is a huge adventure seekers destination. Nikki, what are some of the best adventure activities you would recommend to someone who's looking to get a bit of adventure into their holiday?
There's so many, as you can imagine, and every state has probably their own like quintessential like you've got obviously the hot air ballooning and stuff down in all the vineyards, and scuba diving along the Great Barrier Reef, but some really like out there crazy ones for people that really want to go and see something spectacular. You can't beat something like the Nautilus aviation from Darwin, and like going over Kakadu, or the horizontal falls out of Broome. I've never done it, and it's definitely on my bucket list. It'd be absolutely insane. Again, it's these mind-blowing things that you could never even picture anywhere else. That Broome to Darwin section is just pure adventure.
Okay.
Being able to like see the bungles, these are all mental completely mental environmental things that you'd never expect to see anywhere else in the world, and they are once in a lifetime opportunities. So that Broome to Darwin, you can do that even as a self-drive. Like Brits offer camping 4x4s, so there's the option for people, no matter how soft adventure or full adventure they really want to be. There's options for everybody. And
Frank's put a question in the chat here about costs in comparison to doing a self-drive with a car or a camper van or a motorhome. Nikki, do you know anything about that, about different variations?
Yeah, I've noticed this year, I don't know if everybody else has, campers are more than they were historically, but I think a lot of companies and car hire companies also had to get rid of a lot of inventory. I honestly think that a camper van versus a hotel and car hire basically is going to be roughly the same price. The freedom you get, though, with a camper van is amazing, because you do have the opportunity just to I drove from Perth to Darwin, which is a long old way in a camper, and it was quite a long time ago, but that obviously had zero planning. I was in my 20s, so you don't need to plan then, but that type of stuff is you'd never be able to experience by planning every single night. I think at peak times when campsites are chocker, it's imperative that you pre-book in advance. But otherwise, being able to have the freedom of a camper van is incredible, and one that everyone should experience, I think, once in their life.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, we've got another question from Claire here. Charmaine, I'm going to come back to you because it's about road tripping.
Okay.
She's got a friend who is coming to Australia in December, spending a few days in Sydney, then moving on to Alice Springs, Uluru and Darwin. Where would you recommend he goes from there? He suggested Tasmania and the Gold Coast, but she's looking for suggestions.
So he's going from Sydney up to Darwin.
Sydney up to Darwin, and then on to where would you recommend?
Well, I wouldn't go back down to Tasmania. I wouldn't go back down to Tasmania.
Yeah.
So I would maybe take a detour. Are they going to Adelaide at all?
Adelaide, that's not on the list, no.
No. So I would maybe not, instead of finding somewhere to go after Darwin, I would maybe take a detour to Adelaide and perhaps Kangaroo Island, and the road trip up, if you're driving, would be Coober PD, which is a real adventure place, sleeping under the ground and looking for opals. So I would use that extra time to perhaps do that little detour up to Adelaide, and then perhaps, through the wineries and everything before you head up to Coober PD. That's pretty iconic. Yeah. From Darwin, I would go home.
Yeah.
Anything else you're going to do, you're going to have to backtrack, or you're going to have to fly. Yeah, unless you, like you say, you take the Bungle Bungles route.
Yeah.
And your Fitzroy crossing to Broome. You're kind of doing a Z shape of the map then, aren't you? But I just wonder whether after all of that driving through the middle of Australia, you've actually maybe had enough of the outback. It's pretty adventurous, and I think something in the contrast would be lovely with Kangaroo Island and Coober PD.
Great. We're running out of time already. I can't believe
it's not for hours.
I know. We've got another question about camper van and motorhoming. Is wild camping an option? Do you need permits? Do you know, Nikki?
Yeah, so it's not like New Zealand where you've got freedom camping as part of like the culture. Australia, you do need to book campsites. If you book through your DMC or THL, so Brits and Maui, they've got campsite passes that you can also, or they used to have passes that you can recommend. Like Big Four is one that you'd see at, I think a lot of people's DMCs and ITOs would be able to do those passes. I would recommend organising the big campsites, because then you've got all of the, you can just plug yourself in, you've got all the electricity, all that type of stuff on site, lose, the essentials. But yeah, you can, so the people that you book your camper van through will also be able to provide you with their partner, I guess.
Okay, lovely, thank you. I'm being told we can maybe get a few extra minutes in, seeing as we've got so many questions. People want to hear from you. Cool. So next up, I wanted to ask about the luxury market. Coming back to you, Charmaine.
Wow.
Can you talk us through some of the luxury itineraries that you've curated? What makes them luxury, and what you'd recommend for agents who are selling luxury Australia?
Well, this is definitely me. Camping and motorhoming is not me, but thanks to a couple of fam trips that I was invited on, I was able to see the True North, which is a small ship cruise up around the Kimberleys. That was absolutely fabulous, really. I've also travelled on the Ghan and the Indian Pacific. I think the Ghan is usually the one that everybody remembers the most because it cuts through the middle of Australia, but the Indian Pacific was something pretty special. 3 days across the Nullarbor Plain. So that was lovely. That was luxury, good food, good wine, nice company as well on the trains. If you're like Michael Palin and you like to go chatting to everybody. And I think Tasmania has got some lovely luxury experiences.
Yeah.
We had a fam trip to Cradle Mountain Lodge, which was lovely. In and amongst all of the animals and the wildlife like you've never seen anywhere else in Australia. They're just there in Tasmania all the time. So those are my top 3, I think.
Fantastic, thank you. We've got lots of people mentioning places in the chat. I mean, we've got Frank asking to hear more about Byron Bay. More about that area. Nikki, did you want to take that one?
Yeah, what was the question? Sorry, I love Byron.
Hear more about Byron Bay. What is there to do there?
Is it brilliant?
Is it brilliant? What's it like?
So, top of New South Wales. It's the furthest east, and with the famous lighthouse. It used to be very much a like hippie, very chilled out vibe community. It's now very popular with people that want to see and be seen market. There's some stunning properties there. Crystal Brook just got Byron at Byron, which is amazing. And Elements is, I've been lucky to stay there a couple of times, and it's just one of the most beautiful places in the world. The beach is ridiculous. It's somewhere where you can really feel like you re-ground yourself back to nature and do loads of hikes and things, but still have the amazing breweries and food, and everything's all organic and delicious, and Byron's beautiful. Hot air ballooning. I haven't done hot air ballooning from Byron. If there's a supplier though, I'm sure we can do it. Yeah.
And I'm sure it's going to be great.
Balloon, we can sell it.
Okay, cool. And Claire is asking about Darwin and Alice Springs. Charmaine, you were talking a bit about Darwin and Alice Springs earlier. She's asking what activities you'd suggest in those destinations.
Well, Darwin definitely would be your trip into the outback. Kakadu, Catherine Gorge, beautiful places, and you get that feeling of being in the wilderness of the outback. For Alice Springs, there's a few things about Alice Springs, and probably the hot air balloon that Nikki was mentioning just now. You can take hot air balloons over Alice. Definitely to visit the Flying Doctor service there, because that's where it the centre of it all. There's a few more things, but camel farms, that kind of thing.
Okay.
I can't think of anything else off the top of my head.
It's a really big centre for like lots of Aboriginal arts and crafts as well. So it's amazing to immerse yourself into that.
It's your time to get a very Indigenous feel about Australia, isn't it? Listening to the stories and that.
Lovely, thank you. I did just want to ask also about sustainable travel. I know customers are more and more frequently asking for sustainable trips or being more eco-conscious. Nikki, are there any kind of accommodation activities or advice that you would give to agents who have clients who are looking for a more responsible holiday destination?
Australia as a whole, I think we're lucky in that a lot of places are eco-credited and advertise the fact they're eco-credited. And it's not even just the destinations or the places that you would think, like Paper Bark Camp, for example, in New South Wales, which you'd be like, right, I'm on a glamping campsite, I'm definitely giving back to nature. But it's some of the big companies as well, like Quicksilver, who are out of Cairns and Port Douglas, you'd probably immediately start panicking that they're going to start ripping up the reef, but they're not at all. If anything, they're actually helping regenerate the Great Barrier Reef and are really active in sustainability. So there is nearly every property, I think, that most of our companies would sell are going to be eco-credited. There are different levels. So anyone that specifically wants to really make sure they are very like green aware, there's so many different options there. Okay,
fantastic. Thank you. Well, we've got another question from Frank, who's heard a lot about the Blue Mountains. Whereabouts is it, or what's the nearest big city, and how would you recommend building that into an itinerary? Nikki, you're nodding emphatically at that one. Do you want to take it?
Yeah, so Blue Mountains, biggest city, closest to is Sydney. There's lots of companies such as AAT Kings and that organise day trips there, or you can get the train up to Katoomba and do it yourself. I think there's so much to see up around there as well, and do like the scenic trains. Like, I can't remember what the big trains. It's really
funicular.
Yeah, thanks. And it's like really, really steep. But there's so much to do. But it's a really easy day trip from Sydney. So it means that you can have that big city feel and also get out into the countryside and see all those amazing, like once in a lifetime, Three Sisters and things in the Blue Mountains and stuff.
Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to end with one more question for each of you. And because we might have some agents here today who are tuning in who haven't sold Australia before and are wanting to learn about destination for the first time. So Charmaine, shall I come to you first? And what is your like single like golden nugget of advice for an agent who is selling Australia for the first time?
I think it's the scary part of it, really, because it's such a huge continent, and you know, they come in the door and you almost feel like they know more about it than you do. So I think the answer is not to be afraid of it, but get out a map maybe, or get onto Google and say, oh, I'm not sure where that, let me have a look, shall we look together, you know, and they love doing that because they like poring over maps with you or looking at brochures with you. So I certainly would say, you know, don't be afraid. That's the main thing. Yeah, that's it. Check it, and if you don't know, say I'll check it and find out, and make sure that you do go back to them as quickly as you possibly can. It's that honesty thing that comes across.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And Nikki, what about your golden nugget of advice?
I would say the two main things to remember is that it is vast. So if you think something's going to take 4 hours driving, prepare for 6 or 8 hours. You want your customers to be able to enjoy their journey, not rush it. So think about lunches and things to see on routes. And also seasonality could be quite big. Above the Tropic of Capricorn, it's wet and dry. So wet is wet. So and hot. So there's certain things like from the south of Australia that is a completely different climate to the north. So think about when people are going. Christmas might not be the best time for people to visit Cairns, Port Douglas, for example. So maybe think about keeping them further south. Utilize that type of knowledge in order for your customers to have the best time and just have fun with it. It's such an amazing destination. Putting a trip together is so much fun.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Nikki. And Charmaine, I mean, the insight you've given today has been so valuable. And I can see in the comments, everyone is saying thank you. It's been really helpful and useful. So thanks again for joining.